Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. So I'm going to go back to the last video and make a much shorter video to explain that. I'm going to add something. So I want to add something right now because it's something I just had a realization of right now. I did make a video of it, but I don't think I made it very clear. So first of all, we have been, what's the word I want to use? Not only have we been lied to, we were purposely given the wrong definitions of words from biblical times. And that's because we've been listening to the either-or people, the logical, left-brain, rule, structure, organization people who completely misunderstand the teachings of Jesus and other great teachers. And the entire Bible. I believe they did that on purpose to control us. And the other thing is the overall filter of the left brain, the either-or mentality, is either-or, right or wrong. Now just hold on a second, I'm going to give you something new here. So that generally tended to make everything, you're either going to get rewarded or you're going to get punished. So someone is going to be rewarded and someone has to be punished under this stupid way of thinking. So what happened was words like worship, etc. were misunderstood because our system, going all the way back 2,000 plus years, is based on a punishment system. Everything is based off of punishment and wrong. So the word worship gets, what's the word I want to say, diverted, changed to being submissive, cowering out of fear. Because we live in a fear-based system. So we filter everything through that fear brain, the either-or mentality, which is reptilian. It's kill or be killed. Everything is this fight or flight. I mean, it's the fear-based system. So you hear a word like worship Jesus or worship God, or I'm trying to think of another one, to bow, to be humble, and it's turned into you got to be submissive. You got to give up your power. You've got to be weak. And that's not what it means at all. But the people that have power over you, because they think in terms of, well, either you have power over me or I have power over you, either or mentality, the reptilian brain, is they don't want you to understand that you have power already. They don't want you to know that. In fact, even if you do know that, they want to make sure that you're so terrified of using it that you'll willingly give up and submit to them. So one day during my awakening or on the way there, I remember I just bowed and I prayed and I put my head all the way to the ground, and something happened. Something shifted inside, like I opened up, like I had a clear channel to God, and that prayer was answered. And afterwards I was like, okay, wait a minute here. It wasn't just after, it was during the prayer. Something was different. It was like I had an open channel, a connection with God or Spirit or whatever you want to call it. And I noticed over my life, whenever I can get to that point, that's when my prayers are answered. But if I can't get to that, call it space, it doesn't happen. So you're kind of just talking, blah, blah, blah. It's like you've really got, it's like, here's what it is. You are not submitting as in, oh, you're beating me down. Oh, I'm afraid. Oh, it's not like that at all. It's just it's like you're opening the door to God. You're allowing God to come inside. See, one thing we learned about our ego during an NLP training was, so the Dr. Ted James took a pen, or maybe it was a pencil, and he drew this big circle. So the ceiling was about 14 feet high or something like that. This big circle, basically about 14 feet high, 14 feet wide. And he got up on a ladder, and at the very top, he made it so small, he goes, can you guys see that? And they're like, no. And they go, come here, Michael, and a couple of people up front, come take a closer look. Can you see that little marker, mate? And we're like, no, it's too small. And then he invited the couple of us to get on the ladder, and like, yeah, I can kind of see it from here, now that I'm about 2 feet away. That's called your ego. The ego is only a door. It decides to let information in or to not let information in. So you're using less than 1% of 1% of 1% of your entire ability and power. The rest of that circle, the rest of your brain, your nervous system isn't being accessed. That's why you bow. Because you want your ego to let go so you can open up to receive the energy, the force, the power, the manna from heaven. Man does not live on bread and water alone. He lives on the manna from heaven, the spiritual energy from God or from heaven. Sadly, though, our churches have even with the tone, well, you've got to submit, like you're just like you're nothing. And what God has been telling you is like, no, you are way more than this little tiny tick mark at the top of the circle where no one can see it. And it's so tiny. You are the big entire circle. Anyone who tries to shrink you down, trust me, they're working for the devil. God knows that if you can step into your power fully and completely, you will be a great person. You'll be a loving person. You'll be a compassionate person. You'll be a kind person. You will be a force for good. God wants you to be strong. God wants you to be powerful. And opening the door does that. Even if I were taking just regular guitar lessons or swimming lessons or anything, if I open that door, I can learn a lot better. Be very leery and very weary of people that tell you, you need to submit to the Lord God. You need to submit, especially the way you say it. That word is so abused, and I don't even believe that's a correct term from the Hebrew and Greek language. I don't know. I haven't looked it up yet. But that's not what God means. All right, let me put it this way. Okay. In order to believe that, you would have to believe that God is this arrogant, egotistical, small-minded person. To me, worship is this, it's kind of like celebrating. It's like you're just like, wow, this person has something to teach me, or there's something awesome that they do. Like, you know what I mean? Like a magician, or going to a band that's just singing amazing music. You're like, and I don't mean like you're worshiping the band members. I'm sure some egotistical maniac's going to put that out there. I just mean just like, man, this music is amazing. Open up to the experience of life, to the experiences of the spiritual world. I hope that helps some of you out there. Okay, so today's video is going to be about how people experience life in a completely, radically different way. So in the last video, I broke it down how when we have different bodies, bigger, smaller, the male genitalia is external versus female genitalia is internal, and that causes men to speak the external language, like the external genitalia, and our brain is the external processor, where the female brain is the internal processor. It speaks the internal language, whereas the female womb is internal. We experience the world based on the way we're wired and based on the way that we're designed. And that's okay. In fact, it's good for other people to see things from other perspectives. Because if you're smart enough, you'll get really curious and be like, okay, how are you seeing that like that? Like, how are you getting that experience? Okay, so you look down and to the right, and then you put your awareness back inside your chest, but you let it drop down to your solar plexus. Okay. See, this is what this is what NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, calls modeling. You can learn how to model other people's experiences. They teach you a series of questions on how to find people's values behind their experiences, their beliefs, their unconscious values, the unconscious rules that they live by and why they live it. So when you learn how to match their body language, their values, their rules, their belief, you're starting to see the world from their perspective. And that is where true learning begins. Now, we did a series of 2-week, 3-week, and 5-week trainings over a period of 2.5 years. And let me tell you, when you walk out of that 5-week training, the first one, you are a learning machine. You are curious about everyone's perspective. You like, so okay, so it's like, okay, that's interesting. That's completely the opposite perspective of what I understand. So where are you coming from? So you begin to lean over and kind of turn and stand next to them and turn in the same direction and see the world from their perspective. I learn a ton from my clients. That is probably the most, I don't know, I just lost the proper English way of saying. It's going to sound stupid, but it's the biggest way, the fastest way, the best way to begin to absorb information is seeing it from other people's perspective. In fact, in order for me to help people therapeutically, I have to, the more I can understand why you're afraid of something or why you have this phobia or whatever, the more I can go into your experience, I'm like, oh, I see what's wrong here. Oh, we just got to change this. Another perspective that I love to learn from is children. Is because they're wide open. They're not locked onto one perspective or two different ways of looking at things. They are just wide open. So I'll be like, so why are you happy? Like, what do you feel? Well, it's in my heart and my belly. And when I see that little thing, I, imagine this. And okay, so you have to imagine something after you say, okay, oh yeah, you got to see it like this. And I'm like, oh, okay. A friend of mine, his daughter, she used to make this noise that would, kind of break the ice, and it would help her snap out of it. I can't think of the noise, but I copied it because I remember one day she completely snapped out of being frustrated. I'm like, okay, that was interesting. And she kept doing it over a period of time, so I started doing it, and so it's one of the things that I learned. I've got a series of little things, little phrases and words, and little sounds and things that I say, and cartoon voices, because it helps me snap out of negative states to keep me in better states. All I'm saying is we are all different. And I'm going to go to a kind of a left turn here, but this really applies to what I'm talking about. It's really important to learn from people that are different from you, because they can highlight something that was right in front of your face that you never noticed that could absolutely change your life. You want to know who else I learned from? And I learned this a long time ago when a friend of mine, we went out to San Francisco to help homeless people, stop smoking. Like, we were going to use all our NLP hypnosis techniques, stop smoking, phobia cure, all that stuff. This is how I got really good at it, is I would just use it on anyone that came at, like when I was in college, and like some girls like, oh, I've got this problem. I'm like, really? Like, let's go over it. And like, oh, what do you mean? Like, and boom, next thing you know, they would go, I can't speak in public. I can't do speech class, or they were in class, and I would work with them at lunch, and the next day they start speaking. The teacher like, wait, what happened to you? He's, oh, I talked to Mike. And the teacher's like, well, what did you do? I'm like, oh, we did this phobia cure. She's like, what? So one of the things was we started using these things on homeless people, and it gave me a really different perspective, because I was working with them, I opened up to them, and because of that, I began to, what's the word I want to say? I began to realize some of them have some really valuable information. Like, some of these people had been millionaires or owned like these corporations or ran corporations, and you're like, whoa, what happened? And someone died and they gave up emotionally on life or whatever, but they still had a ton of valuable information. I was like, okay, this is really interesting. Have you seen that one video where there's these two guys in the car and they're videotaping this homeless guy and he's talking about God, and it is the most life-changing video I have ever seen. And this guy goes on and on for about 30 minutes or longer, and he's like preaching the word. He's not being biblical. He's not being, amen, praise the Lord. He is deep. He is speaking from his soul about God and life, and it's the things, the wisdom that he's and it's not like, oh, he's a wise man. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's like what's coming out of him. It's like it's coming from God through him into you, and it is like it changes your whole life. I just looked for it. I found the video. I'm going to give you the title. I'm going to do my best to put it in the description box right towards the top, because it is that important. So the name of this video, the one I found, a bunch of people uploaded it. It's Motivating Wisdom. It's the journey, not the destination. Sorry, it's the journey, not the destination. Full video. And this guy is speaking from his soul, and you're like, wow, this is like this is better than Tony Robbins. Better than any preacher I've ever heard. So I'm going to get to the main message here in a second. The way I want to preface is, if you watched the last video, it should be the one just before, the night before this one. It's the one about Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't have a soul, and the thumb vision nail is now this is a brain twister. So here's all I'm saying. Because our bodies are different, we're wired differently, we have different genitalia, etc. One is external, one is internal. It causes us to experience and view the world from a completely different perspective. And this is a good thing. This is what I'm trying to say. You know, I talk a lot about left and right brain functioning. I'm not saying, and I think some may view it this way, I'm not saying you can't use your left brain. In fact, the way I like to do it is I like to go and get the details, and then you pull them back out and you bring them over to the right brain, and then you put the pieces together, because that's what the right brain does. It connects the pieces together. It connects the details together. It connects the verses of the Bible together to put the puzzle together so you can see the bigger picture. Without having the ability to do that, well, you're kind of screwed. So people that are stuck in their left brain, they can never see the bigger picture. In fact, they might even have all the pieces. The problem is the left brain separates and divides everything. So you can go in there, grab the information, and then pull yourself back out and broaden your vision. There's actually techniques that I teach you how to do this. And then you'll start seeing how the pieces fit together. It literally falls into place. This is why I learn from everybody. It doesn't necessarily mean I agree with everyone, but I do learn from everyone for sure. So Neil Tyson deGrasse recently made a video, or was interviewed, and he says there's no such thing as a soul, and he went on to use scientific explanation and the scientific principle. Here's how you test for it. Well, you can't prove it in the 3D world. So Neil, what you're trying to tell me is God is so small you can look at him through a microscope. Alright, I shouldn't have thrown that in there because it kind of detracts from what this video is about. So here's the thing. A lot of people in the last video might have thought, oh, so you think Neil's wrong. No, actually I don't. Oh, so then you think he's right. No, actually I don't. I think there's just another possibility. Neil thinks everything is the scientific method, the either or, looking under the microscope. It's either A or it's B. There's no other possibilities. Well, Neil, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, X, Y, W, X, sorry, W, X, Q, R, S, T, U, W, X, Y, Z. Did I miss one? I think I did. So my purpose of sharing that is there's a lot more choices than just A or B testing. And to sit there and say, well, because I don't see it, because I don't hear it, because I don't feel it, well, everyone else is wrong. That's a bit arrogant and egotistical. So one of the other possibilities is, well, you know what? Technically, and or maybe, he is correct when it comes to himself. But for other people, he's not correct. See, being this left brain logical to the point where everything is whittled down to one, it's either A or it's B, and there's no other possibility, which means so there's only one possibility, and if you don't pick that one possibility that he picks out of the two choices, then you must be wrong. So I'm going to throw in a third option. Yes, I believe for Neil, I believe if Neil would have stated it this way, but here's the thing, he can't state it in this way, because then in his world of either or, that means he's wrong and he can't be wrong. So the third possibility, which makes you pop out of the either or mentality, is for Neil does not have a soul. Now some of you, if you're in the either or thinking, so you think Neil is bad. No, I don't think he's bad at all. I think he's brought a lot of great scientific stuff to the forefront, to the masses, and a lot of people have learned quite a bit from him. I think he's doing some good work. All I'm saying is, Neil doesn't have a soul. And I tell you what, if you and I would walk up to Neil, talk to him about this video that he made where he proves there is no such thing as a soul, because it doesn't work within the scientific method underneath the microscope. If you were to ask him, say, you remember that video? Like, yeah. And then ask him, so do you have a soul, Neil? He'd be like, no, of course not. I mean, did you miss the whole video? Now here's kind of my purpose here. Is Neil really should say, for me and myself. Okay, and maybe I should ask him this. Say, hey Neil, have you ever experienced having a soul? And he'd be like, well, no. I'm like, so what's it like having a soul? And he would have to say, I don't know, I've never had one. Now, to project who he is onto the entire population of the planet, 8 billion people, probably would be a false assumption. Now, look at Neil's face. Look at his eyes. All that pressure is in his eyeballs. Now, there's a technique that when I first get, especially men that are very overly logical, and I'll have them drop their awareness inside their head and, you know, their body, and then I'll let them sit there for 5 minutes more. And I'm like, well, where's the pressure? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, where do you feel pressure in your body? And they're like, man, you know what I never noticed, but right behind my eyes or in my forehead or my eyes. Like, God, that's a tremendous amount of pressure. So a lot of people that are very eyeball weary, forehead weary, they put a lot of focus there. So they're like, what they're doing unconsciously is they're flexing their muscles, which bulges their eyes out. The muscles around their eyes, etc., is what I mean, and their facial muscles. And they've been doing their whole life that until I do this relaxation technique I do with them, it takes a while to get them there. They're like, man, I've got a lot of pressure in my eyes and behind my eyes and my forehead. I'm like, yeah, you do. And I would tell them, like, man, you got a lot of pressure in your forehead and your eyes. Like, no, not at all. When they first come in, they don't even notice it. They're so disconnected from themselves. See, people that tend to be connected, instead of pushing their energy into their face, into their forehead like that, they drop it back down and then drop it down inside their body. And they let it expand. In other words, they let it go. And these are the people that become more natural, more sensual, more just comfortable to be around. Their voice is more resonant. Their vowels, when they speak, are more elongated versus very digital, like left, right, up, down, you know, number one, number two, and it's very digital versus elongating your vowels. So instead of like saying warm, smooth, soft, let's say warm, smooth, soft. It's very fast. It's very, very choppy. And so there's a huge difference between people that are internal versus external. So what I'm trying to say is this. If you've never had a soul, how could you know? Because you've never had a soul. So from your own physical body's experience, you're like, I've never felt that. You know, and they can look at other... See, people without souls, they can't tell if other people have souls. But people who do have souls, you can look at... Okay, for those of you who have been around narcissists, you felt an emptiness inside them, didn't you? Like at one point, and it scared the living crap out of you, didn't it? Like there was nothing inside, like they were empty meat bags walking around. And then after they terrified you, abused you, traumatized you, you got so scared your awareness came out of your body and went into your left brain and your forehead, and now thus you got disconnected. And you felt like some of you will say, well, I don't feel like I'm connected to God, like God left me. God never left you. So here's the thing that happened. You began to experience the world the way a narcissist experiences it. And that emptiness that you felt was probably the worst experience you've ever felt in your entire life. And it basically terrified you. You felt like, literally, you felt like your soul left you, didn't? Like something inside is gone. Something's missing. Neil deGrasse Tyson has never felt that. All he's ever known is emptiness. He doesn't know anything else. So when you talk about an experience that he's never experienced visually, auditorily, kinesthetically at all, he's never felt it, never had it, he thinks you're lying. And because he's such a mathematical, scientific guy, you would think he'd be like, you know, there's 8 billion people on the planet, and something like 6.5 or 7 billion people have said they've had these spiritual experiences, but I'm right, and those 6 or 7 billion or 7.5 billion people, they're wrong. I'm right, they're wrong. It's a bit arrogant to say the least, and numerically, if you just look at the percentages, hey Neil, it's possible that you're completely wrong. But because he looks at life in the way of everything is either or right or wrong, got to be proven scientifically through a microscope. If it's not proven that way, well, the problem is you can't see God in a microscope. That's too small. you got to take the microscope away, and you got to literally neurologically become wide open. So he's trying to see God through the left brain, and what I'm telling you is like, you can't see God from the left brain, but you damn sure can see him from the right brain. But we all know Neil's never going to do that. I mean, it's literally like you're facing the ocean and someone's like, hey man, turn around, there's a forest right behind you. Like, what are you talking about? There's no forest. It's all water for miles and miles and miles. Water and sand. Turn around. But Mike, I only look at life through this lens. Take the lens off. Open up. And because you experienced it after having a soul, you were very conscious and aware of, oh shit, this isn't the way I used to be. This is different and I don't like this. Whereas Neil's like, what are you talking about? What's different? Because he hasn't experienced the other side. So people that are what I'm going to call internal and or right brain, they're very aware of both left and right. Whereas left brain people are stuck and, you know, like, what is this gobbledygook stuff you're talking about? What do you mean internal awareness? What are you talking about spirit? And it's not that they tend to be jerks about it because they're in the either or right or wrong. Well, either you're right or I'm right. We both can't be right. So I got to make you look like an idiot. So they tend to be jerks about it. But it's because they want to win. Like they have to be right. Instead of going, well, wait a minute. What's this spirit, this soul thing that you're talking about? They won't even ask that. They won't even like, well, what do you mean? What does it feel like? They won't even get curious about something that they have no understanding of. Whereas I do. I want to understand, like, how can you be so empty? Like, what's that like? So essentially what I'm saying is, a man, until he takes my course and this takes work, especially if they're overly logical. In fact, a lot of men that are overly logical, I generally would be like, yeah, I don't think it's going to work for you. We can try. You can do acupuncture and deep tissue massage first for a period of time. You know, you have to be led into this. Whereas some guys that come to me, like construction workers, weightlifters, football players, they're very physical, so they're already connected to the right brain. When I open them wide open, they're like, whoa. Like, and for them, it is I don't want to say it's easier. It is easier, but it's a little bit faster is what I'm trying to say. So because of all these experiences that I've had learning how to open up and be internal, I saw the world from a completely different perspective. It just shifted everything, and I was like, wow. And I began to understand right brain people a lot better. Whereas before, even if I wanted to, I just couldn't. So here's something I think I want to say about this. I think this is probably the most important part. If you're talking to someone who doesn't have a soul, it's not even that they're lying to you. It's that they're like, I don't see God. I don't hear God. I don't feel God. Look, what are you talking about? There's no such thing. In their reality, this is absolutely true. It's kind of like they don't have the connection. They don't have the plug-in. They weren't born with the the app, or that they never downloaded the app or something. So one of the possibilities, as I've shared with you in the past, is when a woman's body recognizes the baby inside her to be a male, it douses the brain of the baby with testosterone to kill it. But what it does instead is it damages the nerve connections, the corpus callosum, the nerves that connect the left side of the brain to the right side. And that's why some men are very logical. In fact, I would say fewer men are creative, emotional, like truly left and right brain beings. Now, they do exist. I would say 10% very much so. And then you got another, say, 5-8% that are medium. So here's what I wish. I wish, instead of just saying, I'm right, you're wrong, either or, right or wrong, I wish we could just be like, wow, that's interesting. So what's that like for you? Like, you know, share that with me. I'm curious. I want to understand. I want to learn. Because as of right now, we're in this world of you're either right or you're wrong. You know, we live in a punishment, fear-based society. Our rules, our laws, our schools, our teachings, everything is based off of fear. Everything is based off of, you know, if you don't do it the way we tell you to do it, we're going to punish you. And that's what's wrong with the world right now. Here's the only other thing I want to add to this. For those of you who are truly dealing with people that are like this, that don't have a soul, they're either or right or wrong people and they just can't pop out of it, you have to understand they don't have the ability to come from the spirit. They don't have the ability to come from their emotions or right brain, etc. So you got to understand that's who they are. They're not going to change, and you have to understand they can't change, and that's what I'm trying to say. So let them go, let them be, let them, let them interact with other people that are like them. And here's the funny thing though, they don't like each other. They don't like other people that are like them, that do this either or, I'm right, you're wrong. This argument, they spin around. They can't stand each other. So it's kind of a very lonely existence. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you liked this video, please click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment. And remember, as always, there is a donation button right there in the description box. It's a PayPal link right down there. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.